Welcome. Welcome to all of you to this live stream forum for the Menomonie School Board candidates. Thank you for attending. And thank you to all of you candidates for your willingness to participate and your interest in serving our community. I'm Ellen Oakes, co-president of the League of Women Voters of the Greater Chippewa Valley. And in partnership with the Menomonie Area Chamber of Commerce, we bring you this forum presentation. As we are 1 month into 2021, the League of Women Voters is entering its second century. We are nonpartisan and pro-voting and continue our commitment to protecting your voting rights as we worked so hard to do in this last year. We also work hard to bring you information right from the candidates, as in this forum. And on the website, vote411.org, where you'll find election information you need. We want to be sure to thank our producer today, Steve Hansen of Wisdot Community. As well as this live stream, a recording of this forum will be posted on our League website. The field of 8 candidates that we have tonight will be narrowed to 6 at the primary election on Tuesday, February 16th, and to 3 victors at the spring election on Tuesday, April 6th. Voters may vote for 3 candidates in spring elections. Here are the rules for this evening. Lots were drawn ahead of time for the candidate's speaking order, starting from number 1 and going on to number 8. And at closing, it will be the reverse order. As we work through the questions, I will be mixing that up so that somebody doesn't always end up last most of the time. The candidates will make opening and closing statements of up to 2 minutes in length. All candidates will have an opportunity to respond to all questions. Answers will be limited to 2 minutes. There is a time clock in the corner of the screen, where there will be while they're speaking. Because of the online format, we can't take questions from the audience, but we solicited questions ahead of time through email and website and got a good variety. Simple arithmetic will tell you each question may take as much as 16 minutes for the answers. We will all do our best. And now it is my pleasure to introduce you to the candidates. The first candidate will be, the first question the candidates will speak to is a combination of introducing themselves and telling us why they're running for the school board. So Mark Hillman is the first speaker.
Thank you, Ellen. I'd like to start by thanking the Chippewa Valley League of Women's Voters and the Menomonie Chamber for having this forum. Like mentioned, my name is Mark Hillman, and I was born and raised here in Menomonie. I attended elementary school, junior high at that time. There was no middle school, so probably aging myself a little bit. And then I attended high school in Menomonie here also. My mother was actually the secretary to the principal for 30 years, so I got the luxury of having my mom at school with me most of my days. After college, I returned to my roots here in Menomonie and started my sales career. Eventually, my family, my sales career turned into a sales management position with the same industrial distribution company that I've been so fortunate to work for the last 20 years. My family consists of my wife and my son actually attends elementary school here in the district. And I've also been very fortunate to be involved and give back to the district, as I've been a volunteer football coach for the last 21 years at the varsity level. I'm a huge advocate of empowering kids to critically think on their own. And I'm also a very strong advocate for extracurricular activities and getting kids engaged. And I believe there's a huge value to that. And, I look forward to the opportunity to not only learn, but keep an open mind and hopefully help serve the Menomonie School District and be a voice for the people. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mark. So the next person to answer this same question will be Angela Skillings.
Hi, I'm Angie Skillings. I'm from the Menomonie area for 40 plus years. I've had the opportunity to serve in many community volunteer positions, serving on the board for the United Way. Both of my kids went through the school district here, and it's harder when your kids are younger and you're running around, picking up, dropping off, that sort of thing. And my youngest just got her license, so it affords me the time after hours to be able to do volunteer things. And I was really hoping to be a positive force in our school district, join the awesome leadership team that they have. I think we have an outstanding school district. There's a new strategic plan that they've implemented that I'd love to help drive forward. My background is in human resources and organizational development. And so I'm hoping that some of the things that I have will be I can contribute some way in the board in that aspect. I really don't have an agenda going into this. I'm looking to be a positive, supportive member of the school board going forward. And that's my opener.
Thank you very much, Angie. Very good. Karl Palmer will be the next to speak.
Thank you, Ellen. Good evening. I'm Karl Palmer. I have lived in the Menomonie School District for about 20 years, owned a home here, grew up in the Boyceville area before that, and grew up in a school board household. My dad, Bruce, was on the Boyceville board for 12 years. So it was always just the way it was at my house, that the phone would ring at night and there would be a concern that a parent had or something. And so I got used to that. I have two kids, a high school junior and a middle schooler, two daughters. Have watched them have phenomenal experiences growing up here in the Menomonie School District. As a career, I'm a nurse by trade. I started out in the ICU, that sort of a nursing, and currently do consulting with small rural hospitals across the country. Really enjoy taking care of hospitals that take care of people just like the people we have here in Menomonie and in Dunn County. When I'm not doing that, I'm a volunteer paid on call firefighter for the city of Menomonie. I have background in emergency preparedness, quality improvement, master's degree in nursing health system administration from the University of Minnesota. And I'm running just because I feel like this is super important work. And I kind of enjoy being in complex organizations, and I really enjoy asking questions. And I think anybody that knows me since I was little would know that. So that's a little bit of my background. If you want to learn more about what I think about, I have information online at www.karlpalmer.com, one word. And I have a blog on there, and I will be continuing to blog through the process. Thanks.
Thank you, Karl Palmer. Next would be Jeremy Enger.
Thank you, Ellen. My name is Jeremy Enger. I've lived in Menomonie now for just over 10 years. I'm originally from the Chippewa Falls area, grew up, went to school there, graduated from Chi High. I currently work for large manufacturing company here in town. I'm part of the maintenance crew. I have a son that is attending elementary school. I also am a scout leader here in town. I'm trying to be very active in the things my son participates in. I believe in supporting these programs and getting involved to keep things going. I'm running for school board to try to improve things. It's the way I am. I like to make things better. I also think that I'd like to give a voice for working families. It seems like a lot of they're not represented as well. People that, 9-to-5 jobs and swing shifts and everything. So I'm hoping to do that and better communications out to the community with the school board. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy Enger. Next up would be Jim Swanson.
Hi, I'm Jim Swanson. I've been a resident of Menomonie School District since the late 1980s. Both of my daughters attended Menomonie schools K through 12, and they both got an excellent education. One was a valedictorian and one was almost a valedictorian. They both received the prestigious Menomonie Alumni Award. Both went on to college, and one has a PhD, and one's going to be done with a PhD shortly. I was also a teacher for many years. I taught in the district for about 10 years. I primarily taught special education and alternative education, and I ran the alternative school in Menomonie. Um, my experience with my teaching with alternative kids, which, if you're not familiar with the term, is the kids that are in danger of failing, really ignited my passion for education. Is also one of the compelling reasons why I ran, because I want to make sure every kid, no matter how they're doing academically and otherwise, are successful in the district. I've been on the school board for 2 terms. The past year, obviously, COVID has been a major issue and will continue to be a major issue for the foreseeable future. In all decisions about COVID, I focus on science and expert advice from medical professionals when making decisions, and work to ensure the safety of our students, staff, and community. Environmental education is another issue that I'm passionate about. I received the Outdoor Communicator of the Year award from the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation for working with thousands of kids and adults at outdoor events all over the state of Wisconsin. And I would like to see our Bjornson environmental site used to its fullest potential. I would like to thank everyone who is watching tonight. Being a well-informed citizen is well-informed is a major part of being a good citizen. So thanks for being here.
Thank you, Jim Swanson. And next is Penny Burstad.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. Thank you to the League of Women Voters. I am Penny Burstad. My husband, Monty, and I own Burstad Insurance Agency here in Menomonie. I've been on the school board for 5 years. We have 2 children, a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old, almost 13 and 16, so I almost have a driver. I am here today because I am incredibly passionate about the board. I have gone through many trials and tribulations, I guess I could say, in the board, but I am continuing my quest in my boardsmanship due to the fact that I believe that now, after COVID, we need to keep our kids in school and we need to keep going. And we also have a strategic plan that was mentioned earlier that was put in place in 2019 that has been somewhat, it's always been addressed, but we need to continue to focus on that. It was a lot of time and energy put in by our administrative staff, our staff as a whole. And it's a great foundation for our district that we need to get back to after we get back to normal, quote unquote normal, after our COVID times. But get our kids back and follow that strategic plan, and we will be an amazing district.
Thank you, Penny Burstad.
Thank you.
Next is Donna. Donna?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending tonight. My name is Donna Thibodeau, and I'm a lifelong resident of Menomonie. My grade school, North Elementary, is now the site of the Administrative Service Center, and it brings such fond memories of the teachers and staff that provided me the opportunities to learn, to love learning. I raised my children here, confident that they would receive an excellent education. My kids participated in outstanding music programs throughout all grade levels, athletics, academic clubs, gifted and talented programming, as well as special education. There is something here for everyone. Having volunteered in the schools for over 20 years, I've developed relationships with school personnel and understand the concerns and issues they face daily. I was honored to be employed with the district for 8 years, serving in special education, community instruction, and as a substitute. Currently, I work as a state certified social worker through a local managed care organization. I support the emphasis on a high-quality education that prepares our graduates for the future, and I believe that my skills and experience will benefit the board.
Thank you, Donna Thibodeau. And last, we have Richard Scharlau. We can't hear you.
There, is that better? There. I want to thank the community. Thank you, Ellen, for the questions this evening. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. My name is Rick Scharlau, as Ellen stated. I'm a lifelong resident of Menomonie. I attended elementary school here at River Heights, graduated from Menomonie High School like a couple of the other candidates, graduated UW Stout in the business program. I've been a youth coach in Menomonie in many different programs over the past 30 years. I started coaching actually when the elementary schools each had their own basketball programs, and they went and played every Saturday morning. I've been a Cub Master and a Den Leader for Pac 130 in the Cub Scouts, and a Scout Master for Boy Scouts of America in Troop 23. I was involved in the River Heights PTO when my boys were in school there. My wife Julie and I have been married for over 25 years. She's from Spring Valley. Like I said, I'm from Menomonie. We have two boys, Brandon, who's 3 years out of school now, and my son, Justin, who's a freshman. I feel that my relationships and contacts with faculty and staff, community members, and students creates a solid look at how the district is perceived and what stakeholders in all levels would like to see from the district. I'm running because I believe our school board needs to have more unity, more cooperation, and more communication to find common ground. I believe that we need to come together and overcome the divisions that we have on the board. I like to think that I'm a person with more of a centrist type demeanor that will listen to each side, ask plenty of questions, and I will get annoying asking them about what the current discussion is about, and make an educated decision based on the evidence presented. I also want to give something back to the district. Many people in this district supported me, teachers and everything growing up. From when I was little in 8th grade and my parents passed away. I welcome the community's questions, and the community needs to question the decisions of the board as time goes on. I welcome the students, faculty, and staff input in how we as a board go about the decisions that are made.
Oh, good timing, Richard. That was just exactly at the end of the 2 minutes. Thank you. Okay, that question was a question that the candidates knew they were going to see. But the next question is not. These are questions that were submitted by public persons. And the first question we'll start with, and Angela can answer this one, Angie Skillings can answer this one. Address positive and negative outcomes you see from the teaching challenges during this COVID time.
I guess there, I unmuted you. As far as positive and negative challenges from the COVID time, I think there may be some learning gaps for some of the students. And positive outcomes are new ways of communicating and meeting and learning, facilitating and learning education differently. But I think some of the negative outcomes are just assessing where the learning gaps are. Some of the kids who didn't have transportation provided to them during the shutdown, that didn't also have internet at home, so they missed some time in school. So getting them caught back up and that sort of thing, I think will be a challenge going forward, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And depending on how things go with COVID, it would be nice if we could spend a better part of the summer doing that, since our last summer we didn't get to do those sorts of things for offering summer options for kids. But I think those are going to be important things, is just really assessing the gaps going forward, the learning gaps that the kids have from the shutdown that we're unable to communicate. I guess that's really it for me. I'm not using up all my time.
Thank you. Next would be Karl Palmer on that question.
Sure. Certainly, probably negatives outweighing the positives. I think everybody would sense that of this time that we're in. Certainly, some of the benefits are that for some students, they have found that a virtual option has fit their learning styles better. Maybe less distractions in their home than in school for certain learners. I know during the time that the kids were home learning, all kids were home learning during the period when there was a lot of teachers out, my older high school daughter found it the additional flexibility in her day to get her work done and kind of fit it better into how she'd like to do it was kind of a welcome piece. I think there's a huge opportunity at some point for teachers and buildings and administrative teams to recognize the opportunities and share what did work well through this experience of the COVID time, as we probably will all be calling it right now. When you're in the midst of the stressful part of all this, it's maybe hard to share what worked and what didn't. But the more we can do that across teachers, I think the more sense of community they'll have, the better outcomes we'll have. I also think it's important to recognize that the folks who chose virtual learning may be feeling out of the loop as we move back towards in-person learning. And that may just be a perception, as sometimes we don't know what we don't know. If we don't hear something, we assume we're missing something. And but I think extra energy to make sure we're communicating with folks in the different settings of learning. And I think it's important to do this learning about what went well, because there's the possibility that we may face another surge of COVID that adjusts our learning on and off for the coming months. Thanks.
Thank you, Karl. Jeremy Enger, how would you answer this question?
Well, I'll start with one of the positives. I think it was a good thing to kind of jumpstart a online learning program for the district. I know other school districts that I have family in, they utilize online options to make up for snow days so that they're covered and they don't have to make them up. It's nice to see that we have that going now because of COVID, and I think it's something that can be utilized in the future. For me, probably one of the biggest negatives is, yes, we had our kids in school, which was great. A lot of districts didn't do that, but we struggled finding activities and things for them to do. Even though they were in school, they still felt isolated. I know my son brought that up, that being elementary school, he was in class, he had friends there, but they couldn't do anything, but at least he got to see them. Now that we're in the winter months, still having gyms locked down and again, lack of sports, it's hard to find ways to keep the kids active and keep them healthy, because we're at that time of the year where you don't get to do very much. And with an elementary school schedule, you only have an hour and a half of light, even when you get home, before you're inside and stuck indoors for the rest of the time.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. Next would be Jim Swanson.
Well, I think that probably the biggest positive was the move to online instruction, which has been coming for a long time. You know, when everything just got abruptly shut down and we had a week to get ready, it was pretty much chaos, and everybody just scrambled and found something that worked. And over the summer, the teachers and administration did a really nice job of identifying platforms that worked. Everyone got on the same page. Teachers learned how to use the online medium. And I think it's gone fairly well from things that I've heard. There's been glitches, obviously. There always is. But I think for the most part, I think we've gotten a really good handle on online education, which is going to be, in some day, probably the way most instruction happens. Who knows? It's kind of the technology. So I think that was really positive. Some negatives, obviously, not having the continuity that we would normally have, some of the close contacts with teachers, although teachers have done a wonderful job of using the mediums like Zoom and whatnot to keep up with teachers. You know, but as a teacher myself, I mean, those personal contacts and relationships, especially the type of students I worked with, the alternative kids, that was like your thing that made the world go round, was developing close, positive relationships. So it's unfortunate, but at the same time, I think it's also made not only teachers but students more resilient, and realizing that, yeah, everything can go to heck and you can still learn and you can still get on with your life. And so I think that's also been a positive.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Moving on to Penny Burstad.
Okay, so it was very difficult for the whole district to have to shut down at the end of 2020, or March of 2020, I should say, and shut down for the rest of the year. But let's move forward into 2020, or the beginning of 2020 into the 2021 school year. And with that being said, I think that on the high school level, being that students had to learn in the virtual environment more, better assists in some of the offerings that we are able to provide for especially our high school students through CBTC and UW Stout, so they can do some additional education pieces that maybe are not afforded to them in the normal classroom, and it's helped them work through those virtual pieces. Obviously, internet in certain situations for some of our students is incredibly difficult. It's hard to get that to our kids, but that also has brought it forward to the board, and we are working with Dunn County to try to bring fiber and get some of that internet access to those students, because it's incredibly important, and it has brought it to light. If we have to go virtual again, which we're all hoping we don't, and I don't want to see that happen, they will at least have that. I know that, again, like I said, Dunn County is working hard with the district. We're trying to push that forward. So our kids were incredibly strong in a difficult time, and we were able to keep this school year our K-8 students in class full time without having to take a break. And I'm running out of time, so thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Moving on to Donna Thibodeau.
I think one of the awesome positives that we have experienced is that students and families have had the opportunity to experience the different offerings and be able to tailor their education to fit their needs, whether it's full-time virtual school through WVS or like the CVTC programs, working with Stout. They got to see how that works and if that works for them. So in the future, people will be able to take classes that are offered differently through different media to get the education that they want for themselves. It definitely, we had to be creative. Our teachers, our families in the district, for their children, they had to be creative with ideas on how to get through the challenges that we faced with internet issues and going online, and how to manage when they had kids at home all of a sudden. The breakfast and lunch programs that have been able to feed our kids at no cost. Even kids who have chosen to stay home virtually and do school are still able to get that food on a daily basis. The negative impacts, I think, that have occurred. It's very difficult to provide some of the services that the district offers, and so those gaps there are big. And I think our staff, our teachers, are burned out by the level of demand that they're facing with providing virtual lessons and in-person lessons and all the stress that comes with COVID.
Thank you, Donna. Okay, Richard Scharlau.
I think some of the positives that came out of this is the kids having an opportunity, as well as the teachers seeing the opportunities to try to take a crack at teaching virtually and see how it goes. For the most part, it worked well while the kids were home. The communication was great. I know for my son, it got to be a bit overwhelming sometimes. He really struggled in the virtual environment. He needs to be face-to-face for my youngest one. He went from straight A's to not doing as well as he would like. Children learn to do better, and that's great. They've shown that if given the opportunity to learn, they can do it virtually. than the ones that were out there. Some of the negatives, lack of social interaction with classmates and others has been detrimental to some of the students. I mean, that face-to-face interaction with other students, with teachers, other staff members, faculty, however, is the way it is. Teachers the same way. Teachers need to have that face-to-face with those kids sometimes too. I mean, for a lot of them, that's their lifeblood. They've spent their whole life trying to teach and give to these kids, and they don't get that face-to-face interaction. They kind of lose out on that. I just hope going forward with the challenges we've had with COVID, we learn from this. We take note of it. If something like this were to happen again, we'd be more prepared for it in the future. The district's done a fantastic job of, whether in person or virtual. There was no right or wrong answer to whether or not we should have been one or the other. To me, it's just getting these kids and these teachers back in the system, back in a role of a normal everyday after we can get through this whole COVID thing. So that's it.
Thank you, Rick. Last is Mark Hillman on this question.
Yeah, thanks, Helen. I'm going to try to focus on the positives. And from a parent having a student in the system, I think keeping our schools open was awesome. And I want to thank the school board, the administration, teachers, students, parents, and the whole community, because it takes all of us to make something like that happen and pull it off. And I know that there was, some protocols and safety protocols put into place during this, pandemic time. And, kudos to everybody in our school system for, keeping our kids 6 feet apart and doing the masks. And, I think there's an unbelievable value to in-person teaching, not only educationally, but socially for the kids, especially with social media the way it is right now, and cyberbullying and all of that. So the negatives, I guess I'd like to touch on the stress that it's put on the families and the teachers. And I think it's awesome that our school district offered not only in-person training but virtual training, or schooling, I should say. And both have been proven to be successful, although I'm a big proponent of the in-person training. But that comes a lot of stress on the teachers too, because those teachers can't teach, one curriculum. It's different for online and it's different for in school, and they can't do the same thing. So just thank you to all the teachers, and kudos to everybody that has helped make this pandemic, somewhat successful, because really there's other schools that are doing all virtual, and I guess I've heard some frustrations with that. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Mark. Bringing it to a conclusion on that question. And moving on to the next question, we will start with Karl Palmer. The question is, what would you do to make broadband accessible to all our students? And how important is this?
Well, I'll answer the second part first. It's extremely important to all of our students. It's important to all of our families. It's important to our industries, even agriculture. One would go talk to a farmer out, and so much is automated, so much is computerized compared to even 10 years ago in all these industries. What can I do about it? As a member of the school board, I would add my voice to the others on the board and look for strategies to partner with local, regional, state initiatives that can help fund and install the mobile broadband that our students need. I know there was a lot of opportunity for kids to get into the buildings during the COVID time so far, that if a student really didn't have access, it was still safer to come in and be in a room where they weren't around other people and maybe have access to broadband. That's certainly a task that is greater than any one of us on this call, that's for sure. But it is vitally important. in some areas may have to get by with a cellular option that's not as robust as fiber until that can be put in. We have some funny areas in this county. There's certain areas, with the fire department things where our radios won't work if you're behind a certain hill. So I'm very familiar that it's a real issue.
Thank you, Karl. How about Jeremy Enger? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I agree with Karl, and I don't think anybody would disagree with the fact that having broadband or access to high-speed internet is very important nowadays, especially when you're trying to do any kind of virtual education. What would I do to try to increase it for the students is tough, because all I feel that we really can do is get behind our elected officials and try to keep conversations going with the providers to try to get out to some of these rural areas. I have coworkers that even right now, they've just never had it where they live, and there's no plans to go out there. So they're really doing the same thing. They're hoping to lobby and get some of these grants put in place, or find options to get it to these areas. Again, as if I was on the school board, we could try to use that unified voice, along with hopefully the city and the county, to push the companies to expand it, to make it available to everybody.
Thank you, Jeremy. Can we move on to Jim Swanson? What's your answer for this?
Okay, well, obviously broadband is critical in today's world. I mean, myself, I'm after I retired from teaching, I took up outdoor writing. Well, I actually was doing it before when I was teaching, and I'm also an editor now of a magazine. And so it's really critical for me. And actually living in North Menomonie, where I do, we have actually poor internet, and it actually impacts what I do for work now. So yeah, it's incredibly important. The district has done some partnerships to bring in fiber into different areas, into some of the schools. We need to continue those efforts. We need to work with WASPI, which is the Wisconsin State School Board Association, which speaks for all of the districts in the state, and puts pressure on the legislature to get some broadband where we need it, and to put funds and to put the program where it belongs, and get it up to the level where we need it. So really, those are the district can do some things, but we really need to keep pressuring the state and federal level through the National School Board Association also to really get it done. This has been a conversation that's been going on since I've been on the school board, and we just need to keep pushing until it gets done.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, next would be Penny Burstad. What would you do? How important is this?
Well, this is obviously hugely important to our district because of everything changing with education and the fact that we may or may not have to be virtual. I think one of the biggest things we can do is work with our local legislators to try to push broadband and other access forward in our areas. I know that locally, especially in Menomonie and Dunn County area, 24/7 Telecom is doing an amazing job. I actually just spoke with a gentleman that was doing, and he lives in the Knapp area, and said that he had no internet service with 2 young children that could potentially, if we had to completely shut down, have to go into a completely virtual world. And at the time, he did not have access. 24/7 as a partner in Menomonie is doing an outstanding job. All of our Dunn County individuals, our local community members, and our township individuals are working really, really hard. And I think if we all continue to work that way, we will be doing outstanding. So communication is huge, and signing into legislation would be amazing as well.
Thank you, Penny. Okay, next would be Donna Thibodeau.
Yeah, so access to the internet is absolutely essential in so many jobs, and in the community, it is also very essential to learning. Our kids need access to the internet so they can gather information, right? And meet with others, connect. I know when we have technology issues in our job, we have to find time to make up the work that's missed. And so by making it, broadband accessible to others, it only makes sense that we're going to, eliminate some of that gap that kids are having and not have to make up that learning that they're missing. Personally, I'm more than happy to advocate for access at the state level. I think our district has had some creative approaches that offering hotspots, leaving schools open. I know when the high school was closed down, they did have space for some kids to come in and be able to work and access the internet. So I think there's lots of ways that we can, while we're working on making broadband accessible to everyone, there's other things that can be done. And we can be creative about how we do that.
Thank you, Donna. Very good. Moving on to Richard Scharlau.
Broadband's essential, no matter how you look at it, from a business standpoint, from an education standpoint, heck, even from a family standpoint. I mean, to have it accessible everywhere is more important than just regular television now to people. The kids use it to communicate. They need it for virtual school in order to communicate with teachers, to communicate with friends if they're working on projects together. We need it in the business world to communicate together. It's the only way we were allowed to meet now where I work. We're not allowed to have any interactions with coworkers, things like that. It's basically you're out there on your own. In a virtual world, if you don't have broadband, you're sunk. I mean, the district did a great job of getting out hotspots where they could. Yeah, they weren't effective everywhere, but it was a start. We need to advocate to the state, federal levels to help get more funds in to the program. We need to work with our community, with our school district, with our students, our family, our faculty, staff, however you want to look at it, to find out exactly where the needs are and push different companies to say, hey, we got to get some service out this way, or we got to get some service going this way, or this needs to be corrected here. Create those hotlines for them to be able to communicate it out, to get it out to people. If we can't get the broadband out there, the virtual setting is not going to be as successful as it could be. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Rick. Okay, Mark Hillman.
Yes, I'm going to start with the second part of the question also, like most people did. And I mean, high-speed internet is absolutely vital on many levels. And I believe in a survey of students during the virtual learning in the spring, nearly 20% of the students had issues connecting and issues with the virtual program, which is a huge deal. So obviously we need to try to better this. And we need to push the state and require expansion by the providers in the areas of our county. Not only that, but as a school board member, and I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you that I know something that I don't. I think it's important. Do I personally know how to get this done? No, I don't. But as a school board member, I would be open to suggestions from anybody in the community, even trying to reach out to the resources and the relationships that I've developed through coaching to other school districts and whatever, and then come back to the board and collaborate and try to come up with the best, way forward to overcome, obviously, this problem. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. And last, Angela Skillings. Angie.
Hi, in looking at this issue, it is absolutely essential, just like everyone else said. And looking up a few notes before, while everyone was talking, in 2015, the FCC did declare internet or broad internet service a public utility, and it was kind of dropped by the wayside. And I foresee something like that happening again. We do have an assemblyman on the current school board who would be a good resource for the school board, who can possibly inform us of what we could do as a team advocating and going down to the state and looking and seeing how we can improve our county. I think it's going to take more than just the school board. We're going to have to partner with people on the county board, on the city board. There's a lot probably that goes into that, more than what, just like Mark said, I would concur with Mark, more than what is my skill set and more that I would actually know how to do. As far as, cell services and hotspots, I do know that I don't know what the district has done, but, in this gap between when that is available and now, different cell services do work in different parts of the area, like where I live. Verizon works and other services don't. So possibly looking at the different services where students are living and maybe utilizing different providers may be an option. I do like that they had students, a space for students available at the school. However, transportation is an issue, and possibly looking at providing some sort of transportation for those kids in the interim too would be another option for us. Those are some things that I guess I thought of quickly, but like Mark said, I really don't have all the answers because that's not my skill set, but that's what I think I would help do with the board going forward.
Thank you, Angie. Okay, moving on to our next question. And this would be with Jeremy Enger as the first candidate. What would you do as a school board member to address the goals of diversity, equity, and inclusion?
I guess for me, the first thing I would be doing is certainly supporting our school's administration and letting them kind of take the lead on it, because I am not an educator. They're the ones I think that are better equipped to handle that, and that's why we hired to do those jobs. Myself, I tend to focus on the equality a lot. Making sure that people are treated equal. I know what I'm a scout leader. I work with that all the time, making sure that the kids are all doing the same things, that we're all being included. I'm one of the rare groups that we have a co-ed unit, so I have girl as well as boys in my unit. More focus I put on the equality over the diversity, because I think we spend a lot of time kind of pointing out differences and almost singling people out at the same time. I think our school district does do a good job, and I'd like to continue going forward. And again, for me, it's supporting them and what they're doing, because I think they're doing the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Moving on to Jim Swanson. What would you do?
I think this starts at the school board level. As a school board and as members, we need to make it really clear that we support diversity, equity, and inclusion. And there are actions that all students are important, and we want everyone, no matter what their background is, that they're going to succeed. As a school board, our main focus is to pass policies that promote things like diversity, equity, inclusion, and then also to follow up and make sure that those policies are being implemented in a way that's benefiting all of the students. Equity, especially equity, is something that sometimes gets confused with the word equality. And actually, equity is different than equality. Equality kind of means everybody gets the same thing. And equity basically means that the students get what they need to succeed. So if a student needs extra help with something, maybe they come from a poor neighborhood and they don't have enough food in the fridge, we make sure they have food. If they have issues reading, we give them extra help to read. So really, equity is making sure that the resources go to the students that they need. Diversity and inclusion, of course, world is becoming much more diverse, and we need to take that into account, that all of our students are represented and treated fairly and equally. So that's it.
Thank you, Jim. Penny Burstad, how about you?
So putting back-to-back school board members, I would echo most of what Jim said, but I'm also going add to it. Strategic
You're
plan. And I'm
freezing
going to reference pillar 2, social and emotional wellness. Oh, am I back? Ellen?
Yeah, you're back now.
You're back. I apologize. So I'm going, I'll quickly reiterate because I don't want to run out of time. I agree with so much of what Jim said, but I'm going to reference our strategic plan and pillar 2 in our strategic plan, which is student social and emotional wellness. And our commitment is we assist all students to be healthy and well so they can learn, thrive, and reach their goals. And our strategy is as a district, which is the board as well as the district as a whole, which we represent. One, obviously, our social and emotional learning, professional development for staff, and mental health service and resources to our students. And in the last couple of years, we have added additional staffing in the form of school psychologists for our students, and that will only assist in the diversity, equity, and inclusion piece above and beyond what Jim had already referenced. And if these students are struggling, they have a place to go. And again, equity and equality are two very different things. So Jim did a great job, and I give him credit, but I think that our pillar 2 of our strategic plan also assists in answering that question.
Okay. Thank you, Penny. Okay, Donna Thibodeau.
All right. Well, first of all, I hope that I lead by example in this area in my everyday life. But as a school board member, I will definitely support and participate in the board's oversight function to ensure that the school district's values are being followed. I will also assist with passing resolutions that acknowledge racial injustices and promote non-discrimination of populations. I'll also be an advocate for equality within the district's diverse population of staff, students, and the families that are here in our district by supporting inclusive language and terminology being used. I feel like this is a really important thing that we need to work on and better every day. So it's a constant goal to be reached.
Thank you, Donna. Rick Scharlau.
I believe it's the district, like Jim and Penny said. I mean, we gotta lead by example. It starts with the school board and works its way down. If the school board can't have diversity, equity, and inclusion, then it makes it harder for the administration and the staff to follow right along underneath that. I believe I do what I can to help with the stated values in pillar 2 of the strategic plan. I know that we've come a long way in our history as a country, but we've got a long way to go yet too, in doing the racial injustices and the other things in the world. Through my past and stuff, working as a coach with the youth, I've done everything I can to include the kids that may not be as good, that may not have the skills, may not socially interact with the other students as well. I've always told the kids that I've coached over the years that those kids are just as important as you, because you're only as good as your weakest link. So to work through those kids and get everybody else to start getting along, it's really created a lot of good things for the kids that I've worked with. Also being a leader in Scouts over the years, that's huge in Scouts. I mean, as Jeremy knows, he's involved in Scouts. I mean, I did 15, 20 years in Scouts. It's very important to know diversity, treat it as it is, and have equity between all the kids. Include everybody you can. Doesn't matter what your background is. Anybody can be good at what they do. Everyone's got a place in this world, and that's important. We just need to help the students through the board, through the district, and everybody else. Help the students find their place and give them the tools to get there. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Rick. How about Mark Hillman?
Yeah, thanks. So diversity, equity, and inclusion. Absolutely, we need to improve on this, but I'm going to disagree just a little bit, not totally, because I still, understand what the board members are saying, but I believe it all starts with the parents. truthfully, we need to teach our kids respect. And I've talked to a lot of teachers. I talked to a lot of, parents, a lot of people in the community. And if you look at the world today, it's just, we lack respect. And, bullying, discrimination, just unacceptable on any level. So, nobody should be a second-class citizen, and if our teachers and our students don't feel like the school environment is safe, then we need to make some changes. And I touched on cyberbullying, and that obviously has to do with social media. And with technology, I think that you lost me for a second. Social media is not going away, and this cyberbullying thing. And when I say that the parents need to start teaching their children respect, I also think that the school board and our school system need to do a better job of communicating and teaching the parents, the dangers of social media and cyberbullying, and how can we be more inclusive, as a school district in the community. So I think it comes down to that, and social media is a pretty big thing right now, and it's kind of scary.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, Angie, your turn.
So this kind of correlates with one of the questions that I submitted to you guys for the online voting forum. But I would continue to support the mission of the district, which includes embracing unique needs and using the strengths of our diverse community, and being dedicated to preparing all students to become lifelong learners, caring individuals, and responsible citizens. Additionally, like within the strategic plan, I know it was mentioned in Pillar 2, but in Pillar 1, 1.2, actually, they talk about the concept of covering personalized and differentiated instruction, which includes taking inventory of skills in areas to determine strategies to aid our students in growth. Understanding equity in education really, I believe, begins with understanding the challenges and the barriers that our students are facing. So I know that I do have a significant amount to learn, but I feel as though stepping onto this board, I would have great partnerships and resources and peers that would help me to get there. But those were some of my initial thoughts when you guys proposed that question earlier.
Thank you, Angie. Moving on to Karl Palmer.
Thanks, Ellen. For the whole topic of DEI, I'm not going to repeat. Yes, it's in the strategic plan, as it absolutely should be, which I was very happy to see when I started doing my homework on the strategic plan. As a board, I think there's a couple of things. One is to be intentional in policy development, and I think it's also important, not just the obvious policies that might be regarding topics that you would think would affect DEI topics, but other policies as well. Kind of tack that on as one more thing to review in policy, and make sure that the board isn't unintentionally overlooking something that could be made better. I also think that it is the board's job to make sure policy is being followed, and how well policy is being followed, how well the environment is supporting these topics, really is the students and the staff to know. They're on the ground, they're in the buildings with each other, in the hallways, in the classrooms. So I think there has to be good connection with the staff, the students. If there's concerns from students, the board definitely wants to know about that. As a board member, I definitely think when I recognize differences in situations or people, that is a reason to look at my own perceptions and make sure I don't need to change them, because sometimes I've been wrong. And then lastly, I had a good teacher here at Menomonie told me one of the things that was important to them was to make sure every student had an adult in the school that they could talk to and trust, whether it was a teacher, a janitor, a lunchroom person. And if every student has one staff member they can trust, they're going to feel included, like the school is the place they want to be.
Okay, thank you, Karl. All right, so now we're moving on to another question, and we will start this round with Jim Swanson. And the question is, several Wisconsin, by the way, Steve, watch out for this question. We're doing question number 6. Several Wisconsin school districts have set goals to reach 100% clean energy by 2050. Do you support a 100% clean energy goal by 2050 for the school district of Menomonie? Why or why not?
Yes, I do. In fact, I introduced a resolution last spring sometime to do exactly that for the district. The goal was to as the district moved through its general maintenance plan and replacing equipment and making other changes, that it would prioritize whenever it was feasible and save money to bring in clean energy technology. And considering clean energy technology is pretty much the way of the future, that's what we would be doing. So yeah, I support it 100%. Unfortunately, the resolution got tabled. So I'm still going to be working to get that done. The district has done all kinds of things prior to this being brought up. Things like signing on to solar energy and just doing a lot of stuff like that. So it's something we've kind of been working on, but for some reason we couldn't pass a resolution that said we wanted to actually do it. So yes, I 100% support it, and I will continue to work till it gets passed.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Next would be Penny Burstad. What is your response to this question? Penny?
It looks like we've lost Penny.
Oh, shall I move on to Donna then, and we'll come back to Penny? Donna Thibodeau? Technology. Hi, Donna.
Hi. I will definitely support any clean energy resolutions that come forward at the board. I think utilizing renewable resources, reducing our carbon footprint, and exploring new ways to incorporate locally resourced goods and services is something that we need to do as a community. Menomonie residents, teachers, staff, and students participate in school gardens already. They have recycling programs at the different school sites. They're composting waste. The district also has 2 locations with solar panels that supply energy to the district and create revenue. One of them is at Bjornsson's environmental site. A clean energy resolution definitely has my vote.
Thank you, Donna. Do we have Penny back, or shall I move on to Rick Scharlau?
We don't have Penny back.
Rick Scharlau? Ah,
There you go. I don't see why not. I mean, I also realize that there'll be some roadblocks along the way. Is it attainable? Sure. But as long as the expense isn't too great for the district at any given time, just got to be smart about the spending and when we're doing it. Working within our community would help the district to get there. So I'm in favor of this. Yeah, I'm also a realist and know that there may be issues in getting there. But yeah, I totally support putting some sort of resolution on the table.
Thank you, Rick.
Yep.
Mark Hillman, how do you feel about this?
There I am. Thank you. I think our world is moving to a carbon-free, green footprint. And again, I mean, this is something that, is going to take a lot of time and a lot of resources and a lot of thinking. And I think from a budgeting and, fiscal standpoint, the earlier that we can have these talks and look for options, the less the burden's going to be, waiting for the last minute. So if it can be done, and again, I'm in support of it if it can be done without taking away from the students and the teachers.
Okay, Mark, thank you. Angie Skillings, can you answer this question for us?
In looking at this question, it's really hard to say. So much has changed in even the last 15 years and 30 years from now, what things will be like. So I can't say, that we would be at 100% clean energy by 2050 is like what the question says. But, a value added approach in making a decision, is it sustainable? Can we afford it? Is it cost effective? Where are we going to get the funding? Those sorts of things. I think there's so many things that play into making that decision. I definitely would support steps in that direction, but it would have to also meet other requirements in order for me to 100% support a decision like that. And I don't think that we're at that point in our economy, in our country, even though things are leading in the greener footprint direction. But, depending on how our funding goes and that sort of thing, it would definitely be a consideration. I know like geothermal, I believe that Downsville School has geothermal. I'm not sure. And some of those things have already been implemented. And I think those are good measures when they are cost effective and there's a return on your investment. But I also think, we have to think about funding too and ways to achieve that with funding being reduced and things like that. We can't always do everything we want to do when we want to do it. So we're going to have to prioritize things as a board, with a goal of moving that direction, I guess would be my answer. It would be a value added approach.
Thank you, Angie. I understand Penny is back. Can we have Penny now on this question?
Thank you. First things first, Ellen and everyone involved, I hugely apologize. And if you could have seen me running through my house freaking out, you all would have laughed at me, which is fair. And I'm reading the question at the bottom of the screen and trying to catch up. And it's talking about 100% clean energy goal by 2050. And you know what? Our district has worked really incredibly hard without needing a goal. LED lights, solar investments, bringing on a clean energy manager just within this year to work with Kevin Tomaszewski in our buildings and grounds department. Our district is making a huge investment prior to needing to sign on to this for our district. And I cannot personally sign on to an open-ended goal by 2050 that could potentially take away from our students the dollars that would go into the education to our students, as well as the dollars that would go into staffing. And because we're already working so hard and so aggressively in this, I believe in clean energy. I think it's amazing. And our district has been working on it so hard. I can't sign on to it by 2050, but you can see the steps we're already taking.
Thank you, Penny. I'm so glad you're back.
And thank you for being patient, everyone. I'm so sorry.
Okay. So now, Karl Palmer.
Thanks. Yeah, Penny, you just did the virtual learning simulation that I watched my daughter go through in the spring when the internet dropped out that one day. I 100% support the idea of the 100% goal by 2050. That's 29 years from now if my math is correct. And I think that's plenty of time for clean energy to become cheaper. It's moving in that direction. Goals are goals, and goals can be adapted. Goals can be changed or adjusted. If we don't put pen to paper at some point and put clean air and clean water in the major industries in our county, it'll get kicked down the road. And I do absolutely recognize the great stuff that's happening in our district. Penny mentioned a lot of things. Jim mentioned a lot of things. Donna mentioned the gardens at the schools. Oaklawn Elementary School a few years ago, when my daughter was there, had a bicycling club where one of the teachers and a couple of us got the kids to ride bikes at lunch and around the lake, which is obviously a zero emissions activity, short of the fifth grade boys' bad jokes and things as we went around the lake. So I 100% support it. I think a lot of people are doing bottom up efforts. We have to be able to figure out how to pay for it, of course, like we would with any other goal or priority. And then finally, I think the district continuing to do those things sets a great example for our students, that this is a growing area of science, technology, engineering, and math, and that it's good work. It's good jobs when they do come about, and we can put it on the radar. So to me, 29 years is on the radar, a safe goal at that point.
Thank you, Karl. And Jeremy Enger is the last one to speak to this question.
Yeah, I'm for a clean energy goal, but for me the biggest problem would be we got to make sure it's cost effective. I know a lot of the clean energy, we're still having trouble with it. Sometimes we where I work at, we've made some changes to do LED lightings and found out, wow, this didn't really save what we thought it would. We got to be smart as a district in how we spend it. I mean, it's good. Okay, hey, this is due for replacement. Let's look at the clean energy option, weigh the cost so that we're not taking away from other things. Likewise, I know Excel Energy, they're already doing a clean energy initiative, trying to increase solar panels and doing other renewable sources. I think we will get there, but for me, it's not a top priority. I'm more worried about getting programs, funding our teachers the supplies they need, things like that. So.
Thank you, Jeremy. That wraps that question up. Although if any of you are interested, you should come to my house. We have geothermal and it's saving us big bucks. But thank you anyway. Moving on to the question about the Bjornson Education Recreation Center. And the first person to take this question will be Penny Burstad, so I'm glad she's back. What do you know about the Bjornson Education Recreation Center, the district's environmental education site, we used to call it? And do you think it's being used to best advantage?
Well, I have been there. I am not much of an outdoorsy girl, I'm not going to lie, but I love to hike, and I have been out with both of my kids' classes. My husband went and stayed when my daughter was in 5th grade at Wakanda, and it's amazing. Do I think that it's used to its fullest advantage? Probably not, quite honestly. I would hope that there is more opportunity to get students out, but unfortunately there's also a cost to transporting students out to the site and getting them there. And in the days of COVID now, it makes it increasingly difficult. Right now we're just trying to keep our kids in school, so putting multiple students on a bus and taking them to an environmental site is not necessarily something that many families are in favor of. I would be fine with it as a parent. I think it's outstanding and we need to utilize that site more. But right now it's a difficult time just to get students in our classrooms.
Thank you, Penny. Donna Thibodeau, what do you say about the environmental site, the Bjornson Education Recreation Center?
Yeah. So during COVID, I'm sure that there's no class trips actually attending anything out there, but I know that I have had the pleasure of going out with my kids' classes for spring visits, fall visits, and it offered them some great opportunities and experiences to learn about nature that some kids might not have just because they don't live in the country, or their families just don't have that on their radar to go do. Um, the schoolroom out there has, some wonderful things, collections of taxidermy or different things, maps and things that kids are exposed to. The community. I go out there quite often. I love to snowshoe, and so I get out there and I experience that peaceful setting. And I see lots of people out there also doing that. Is it probably used to its fullest potential? I'm going to say no. We do have the solar panels out there, which I think is a great utilization. And that's, again, that's bringing revenue back to the district, but I'm sure there is more that can be done. So yeah, I've had great memories out there, and I think a lot of kids have as well.
Thank you, Donna. How about Rick Scharlau?
The environmental site, as it was when Mark and I and Angie all went through school, is what it was called before it was renamed Dornson Education Center. Those are some of the best memories I've got as a kid going to school. I mean, and going out there, no matter what year of school it was in, it was like one of the most look forward to field trips. Is it being used to its best advantage? I don't believe so. I believe more could be done with it. I believe there could be more focus put on things that happen out there. I understand the transportation piece. It does get expensive to run kids places. My wife's a teacher in Eau Claire. She runs kids once in a while on buses, and it's astronomical just to run them 8 blocks down the road. So the cost is there. Is there ways that we could figure out to utilize it in other situations? Absolutely. I think we need to do what we can. I know some scouts have used it. It's reached out and been a good thing for the community. The scouts have stayed out there, like I said. There's been Eagle projects done out there. It's a great piece that's underutilized, and maybe we need to find ways to utilize it within the community and not just the school, so people know it's out there, and bring more funding to it so that way it can be used more for the school through the community. So, thanks.
Thank you, Rick. Next up would be Mark Hillman. What do you say?
Well, I'm going to have to kind of echo what Rick said, and he's absolutely true, absolutely right with what he said. And I can remember back when I was in elementary school, and we absolutely valued the experience that we had at the environmental site with overnight field trips and sleeping under a plastic barrier with a tent and finding organisms in the creeks and whatnot. So just a great experience for a young kid. And quite honestly, when you said, Bjornson, whatever it's called, because honestly, I didn't even know what it was called. And that's horrible because I've lived in Menomonie most of my life. But that just goes to prove right there that undoubtedly it's not being used to its fullest potential. And I think we need to figure out ways. And again, Penny and some of the others touched on the funding, and that's going to be an issue. But if there's any way that we can utilize it a little better, I think the experience for young kids is second to none in the educational learning experience. So that's what I got.
Okay, Mark, thank you. Next, Angela Skillings.
I remember going out there also as in elementary school. I remember junior high, Mr. Schutz, and what I remember most about is how passionate he was about the environmental site and showing us all of the things in nature. I remember snowshoeing. The one and only time I've ever snowshoed was there. I think it's a great experience for kids. I didn't grow up in the country. I grew up in the city. We didn't camp. That was all foreign to me. So that was my first and really, at that growing up only experienced doing those things. And I think it's really invaluable. They're definite positive memories that I have, and utilizing that as part of our science curriculum. I don't know how much of that we do, but I definitely think it's an added benefit that we're fortunate to have as a school district. And if we aren't using that to our full advantage, we definitely should be. So yeah, I definitely think it's a great asset that our school district has, and we should keep it and build it and grow it and do what we can to make sure that all the kids have those experiences.
Thank you, Angie. And Karl Palmer.
Thanks, Ellen. I did not go to Menomonie High School. I went to Boyceville, but we also had outdoor education opportunities. I remember sleeping out at a summer class next to the Tiffany Creek with our science teacher on the sleeping bags and things. We had hunter safety in gym class when I was growing up. So I've definitely valued school-sponsored outdoor learning. I chaperoned with my kids at the Bjornson site, have good memories there as well. I agree, I think, with everyone else that it is probably underutilized from what we would all like to see. And I would also acknowledge that there is costs to getting kids out there. Unfortunately, it is not out the back door of all the schools. So the use, I think, has to be very intentional. So I would envision thought processes that drive up the use, but also make the use more intentional, especially for the older grades. I think that it is a disparity and a gap for a lot of our kids, even though we're predominantly a rural community. Not every kid grew up on a farm. Not every kid grew up having parents like Angie said that want to be outside doing outdoor things. So part of the way that we get to where we want to, take care of the world around us and leave it better than we found us is to go spend time in it, whether that's hiking, snowshoeing, bow hunting. Bow hunting this year, sitting in the tree, got me through the COVID blues pretty good, just listening to the birds and things. So I think we should find ways to use that more. And as far as curriculum goes, I have an oldest daughter who's interested in environmental sciences sort of things. It would be a phenomenal resource to have some sort of an elective track out there at the Bjornson site that was supported by credits. Thank you.
Thank you, Karl. And next up would be Jeremy Enger.
So yeah, I have to echo a lot of the things that have already been said. Just like Richard had pointed out with Scouts. I mean, we try to be outdoors, get the kids involved in nature. My son has enjoyed every trip he's had to the outdoor, to the recreational center. Again, it'd be nice to get it utilized more, but as everybody keeps saying, we do have costs involved, and it's something that's got to be looked at. But I would hope that we'd be able to get every group out there at least once and find more ways to get them there. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. And finally, Jim Swanson.
Okay, so my involvement in Bjornson goes way back to when I first moved to Menomonie and started teaching and working with alternative kids. And we did all kinds of construction projects out there. In fact, I'm responsible for most of the bridges that have been built out there. I also used the site as part of the alternative program to take kids out there and do work and to teach them good work skills. Definitely the program has gone backwards in the last number of years. When I had the alternative kids out there, one of our big things was getting stuff ready for the annual fourth graders maple syruping project. Remember Dave Schutz and then Paul Verdon who were out there. They got a really nice grant, brought in a whole bunch of equipment, and every fourth grader came out there, tapped maple trees, learned the science behind that. And then they got to make pancakes with the maple syrup that they tapped and made. That's not happening anymore. There's a lot of things we could do to involve the community more. Starting a friends organization that would come out there. I mean, maple syruping is a great thing to get the entire community involved. Talk about snowshoeing. Snowshoeing hikes by candlelight are amazingly popular. I love to do them. I go to them all over the place. We should have one out there. That's a perfect facility for it. I've done a lot of Earth Day things out there also, helping with different projects. I'm also on what was called the Wisconsin Environmental Education Board for a number of years. And we have one of the finest school, forest, and environmental education places in the state, really. We have an amazing facility. Good, strong environmental education helps all education improve. We need to increase staffing out there. That's one of the biggest problems. We don't have adequate staffing. But yeah, it definitely needs to get better.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, so we're down to our last couple of questions here. This next one is going to be a tough one. The Menomonie School Board has had some very contentious meetings, including the censure of a board member. What would you do to help the board function more smoothly? And the first person to speak to that will be Donna Thibodeau.
Thanks. I'm so lucky to get the hard question and be first. You know, I've started attending the board meetings, and there is there's something that there's an air in the room, and I want to bring, if I'm elected, I would really like to bring an air of solidarity, working together, listening to each other, and make that a goal to get along. We don't have to have the same ideas. We don't have to have the same beliefs. What we do need to do is be respectful and hear each other out, and then go ahead and vote the way we're going to vote. And so I think that as a board member, I would like to just bring that idea that I'm joining this group, and I want it to be a productive group.
Thank you, Donna. Moving on to Rick Scharlau.
I believe I kind of stated on it in my opening statement is, you know, I think I could come in and be more of a centrist person to the thing. I'd listen to both sides, get the facts, try to do what we can to communicate between each other. And are we ever going to completely agree? Sure. Are we ever going to completely disagree? Yeah, but we need to be respectful of one another. We don't need to sit there and belittle each other as we're speaking, as we're going about our business and doing the things that the board needs to do. Like I said before, not always going to agree. If we have the right facts in front of us and we vote the way the students, the staff, the faculty, and the board and administration want us to vote and make the decisions for the right reasons, then we should be able to get along and accept whether or not we won the battle or lost the battle, but take it and move on, and then maybe reiterate or revote or I can't think of the word, revisit what was talked about and table it for a bit and then come back to it when everybody's got calmer heads. I like to think that I would be able to get in there and help with the calmer heads and just say, hey, take a breath. Let's talk about this and let's get it figured out. Thanks.
Thank you, Rick. So the next person would be Mark Hillman to speak to this.
Yes. So, you know, I think the whole thing comes down to respect. It really truly does. And I mentioned it before. And it's a little different, I believe, for a parent, you know, teaching their children. You know, you start with the manners and, you know, being polite, nice to people, helping them out, opening doors, doesn't matter who they are or what they are. That's just a part of being a good person. And again, I'm going to reiterate that is gone and needs to come back in our society and our school district in every phase of life. If I was a member of a school board, I would undoubtedly keep an open mind. And, you know, like the others have mentioned, I'm totally fine with differences in opinions. and coming to the best conclusion. And it's not being a school board member is not about me. It's not about the other board members. It's you're doing a justice for the community and the school district, and you're a voice for the people. So I think we need to take personal interests out of it. I think we need to, again, it's a conscious effort to have respect and give respect. And unfortunately for grownups, respect is not just granted, it's earned. And you earn that through your behaviors, your actions, the way you talk and everything. So I think respect is the foundation. You don't put a roof on a house until you have the foundation and the walls up. And I think we need to do that.
Thank you, Mark. Next up would be Angie Skillings.
I think going onto the board and being part of a team like that, I did see that board meeting. It went viral. Really embarrassing for our school district and for our school board. I think that I don't totally know what the dynamic of what is going on was. That was one of my reasons for putting my name in for a school board member. But I think that when you come to a majority, you make a decision as a board, you have to support that decision going forward. So whether you agree or not agree, the board voted and this was the decision. And so you have to get on board with that decision, and you have to make the best and do the best going forward to support that decision. I think staying on topic, staying on task, being respectful, asking appropriate questions at the appropriate time, just treating each other with mutual respect. We're all here. We're all in the same boat. We're all here for the same purpose. And when we want to do the best for our kids and for our community, I think being a liaison for parents in the community also is part of it. There may be some parents that have concerns that maybe I don't have or I don't agree with completely, but I think it's important for me to make sure that they have their voice heard. And so just being a respectful part of the school board and treating each other with respect, like Mark said, is definitely something that I would do going forward.
Thank you, Angie. And can Karl Palmer speak next?
Sure can. I also have watched a good number of school board meetings over the past 2 years, and I guess my personal feeling is that there's been some negative comments, body language, and such at many of them, not just a single meeting. As I put my yard signs out, I've heard comments from people like, "Are you crazy to go be on that board?" We watched the meeting. I've heard it described as entertaining. I've heard meetings in general described as embarrassing to some people, that there's so much disagreement in the way that it happens. I strongly believe that as a board member, as an individual, you have to be a role model. You have to model respectful behavior. Hopefully those of you that are watching that know me absolutely promise to role model respectful behavior. I think that there's two pieces that could be improved. One is, I feel like the board sometimes has differing perspectives on the level of involvement that the board is meant to have on detailed issues. In reading the materials from the WASB, the Wisconsin Association for School Boards, it's very clear that the job of the board is to oversee a district, but that means the board has to be accountable. And so sometimes the board can ask questions, sometimes the board may on certain topics have more involvement than others, but most of the community does not recognize that any one of us on the school board does not have day-to-day operational responsibility for the school. And then secondly, the other thing I think that would help is that you have to begin with the end in mind. And if everyone agrees that the goal is to keep school open, then let's move towards that. If we're not in agreement even to that point, we're not going to get anywhere. So there has to be better agreement on the goals, strategic plan.
Thank you, Carl. Jeremy, your turn.
Yes. What would I do to help the board function more smoothly? First of all, just to reiterate again, other people, we need to listen to each other. We need to be able to debate the ideas, not attack the people. We need to be able to listen and be open-minded. I mean, that's part of what the board is about. It's to have a debate on the differing viewpoints. We are there to represent the families, the taxpayers of the community, the people that are attending the school. We're their voice. It's not about us, it's about them, and we should be thinking about what they want. As I said in my opening statement, that's kind of a big part of why I'm running is, myself, I feel like your average working family doesn't really have a voice in that board with the way some decisions are made and the way some things go. And being I have a son in the district, he's in elementary school. We plan on staying here for a long time. He's going to be going to middle school, next to high school. I want to make things better. I have a vested interest. Same reason I got into scouting. There was a need for leadership. I saw what the program benefits were, and I stepped up and I took the role. Kind of the same thing I'm trying to do here is I see a need for an improvement. I think there needs to be some change, and that's why I threw my hat in the ring and trying for the job.
Thank you, Jeremy. I've been in Scout leadership too. Moving on to Jim Swanson.
Yeah, well, there definitely have been some disagreements on the board on different issues. The biggest thing I think is to agree to disagree when you don't come to unanimity or unanimous decision on various issues. And during the discussion, we've had a lot of 5-4 decisions on different issues that really impact the community very strongly, and all the board members, of course, are representing the community. We get feedback from people all the time, and we bring those perspectives to the board. So basically, we take the vote and we have the discussion, and then whatever the vote is, we work from there and make sure that the policy that got passed moves forward and gets implemented properly. That's about it.
Thank you, Jim. Next is Penny Burstad.
Have policies in place for board member decorum behavior, and we try to encourage those everywhere. I respect everyone that is running for this seat, and I appreciate and agree with agreeing to disagree and wanting to come in with an open mind and a positive open mindset. But I also think that the community as a whole needs to appreciate the fact that you have 9 personalities, you have 9 views, you have 9 people that are representing 9 very different groups of people that are incredibly passionate about what we're doing. And although it may get heated at times, we try to come to an agreement at the end of the day. And yes, it has been very difficult, especially within the last year. But I think that I know, you know what, I'm only going to speak for myself in the respect that I want to see our board move forward and be productive, because we have many, many other issues we need to be focusing on than board member behavior. And I think that we're in the process of being able to get to that point as a board and be stronger and more cohesive, because in my 5 years, only about the last 3 have been as contentious. But in that last 3 years, there have been a lot of very contentious issues. So if we were not really passionate about what we're doing, we shouldn't be there. I guess that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you, Penny. Did I start with Donna on that one? I did, didn't I? Yes. Okay, so this is the last question, and it's short but deep. What is your philosophy of special education? And first person to speak on this will be Richard Scharlau.
I believe my philosophy on a special education is being able to teach an individual child the way he or she or whomever needs to be taught. Each kid's a little different. Some kids can learn by the mainstream style. Some kids cannot. Those kids that cannot need that little bit of special education, a little bit extra push, the little extra tap on the shoulder, say, hey, good job, things like that. I believe also my philosophy of it would be to help these kids reach attainable goals on the short term with a long-term goal in the background and say, hey, you want to graduate, you want to do this, you want to do that, you want to be whatever in your life. Let's work through these little things first, hit the small goals before we hit the big goal. I guess that's my philosophy on special education. Thanks.
Thank you, Rick. Okay, next, Mark Hillman.
Yeah, and again, I kind of agree with what Mr. Scharlau said there. Every child does learn a little bit differently, and I can't speak to the curriculum that we're providing our teachers and whatnot, because I do not know that. Now, again, I can learn that if I'm involved with the school system, but I'm not going to sit here and tell somebody I know something when I don't. Now, my philosophy is I believe we should be giving our teachers and who's ever trying to guide these students all the resources that they need, which I believe is probably more than other students, but they should be given the opportunity to become successful and improve. Absolutely.
Thank you, Mark. Angie, your turn.
As far as special education, I definitely think it's very important. It emphasizes individualized education, smaller class sizes, but special training geared toward whatever that child's educational needs are. I also feel like our teachers that are in that realm of teaching special education need to have continuing education and support in order to be able to be refreshed and motivated and learning new tools all the time to help assist those kids in need. I would guess that's, I know that Donna talked earlier about burnout with COVID and things like that. I'm sure that that's an area, although highly rewarding for those teachers that are in that area, that it's also can be highly, burnout area too. So I think that as much support as we can give them through the administration and on the board as the board as a whole, I think is important.
Thank you, Angie. Next would be Karl Palmer.
Thanks. Well, I think I would start off as Mark did and own up to say this is an area that I have very little experience in. So I do have faith and trust that the district has experts that pay a lot of attention to this topic, that we are supporting these kids. Certainly the mission statement of the school district is dedicated to preparing all students to become lifelong learners, caring individuals, and responsible citizens. And it doesn't say in there what our needs are or what our baseline is or what our potential learnings are or potential jobs are. So as a school board member, 100% support meeting the needs of all of our kids. Easier said than done with budgets, I am sure. There's only so many dollars that have to be split up. But certainly every kid deserves to be the best they can be.
Thank you, Karl. Next would be Jeremy Enger.
So again, I'm not that familiar with our district and its program. I'm not an educator. However, I happen to have a sister that is a special education teacher in another district. And yes, the uniques, I mean, the students all require something unique, and you have all levels. And it's certainly something where we need to give the teachers the flexibility to do what they need to do for that student. I mean, it's been extremely hard for her during the time of COVID that you have rules passed by the school district administration, their school board, their governor, their bodies, and it's very difficult for her to comply with those because, okay, well, how do I keep distance when these kids actually need physical assistance to do certain functions? And it's just, it's important that we support them and we give them what we need. Again, the budget constraints and everything else, but it's definitely an area where we need to look at everything student by student.
Thank you, Jeremy. Next would be Jim Swanson.
As a former special education teacher, I think first off, the law, there's federal law and there's state law that governs how special education works. And there's processes in place where students are identified, tested. There's legal requirements where you have to develop an individual education plan for each special education student. And then the district, it basically becomes a contract between the district and the family, and then you need to implement it. So the first part of the philosophy is you just have to make sure that you're following all of the laws, making sure that you cross the I's, dot the T's, and then implement it properly. The other thing is that, running an alternative school like I did, my daughters, as I said, were very successful. It was very obvious they were going to college. I mean, my one daughter got a complete free ride at University of Pittsburgh based on her academics. And I said, these students at this alternative school, they all came into our school with not enough credits to graduate. I said, they deserve absolutely the same chance to do post-secondary education as my daughters are getting who are highly successful. And we built that school around that idea. We took students to colleges. We taught them how to make decisions. We advanced their academics. We made this huge extra effort to make sure that these kids, when they graduated, they went to CVTC, they went to Stout, they got into secondary education, and they had really good outcomes. And we succeeded. So really, that's my philosophy, is that every kid, whatever you have to do, now we call it equity. At the time, that wasn't a buzzword in education, but that's what we were doing out there. Real life equity, to make sure every one of our students graduated and got into something post-secondary that was going to help them.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, next is Penny Burstad.
So I'm going to say I'm struggling with this question a little bit because I don't like, I shouldn't say I don't like, the word philosophy. And as a school board member, our job is policy and budget. It's not about our philosophy. It's overseeing what the administrator is doing and the team that he puts in place. And I firmly believe that Tonya Quesky and Seguin, all of the individuals, the special ed teams that have been put in place, either on whether it's elementary, middle school, or high school level, are top notch and are doing amazing. And they have been put there for a reason. It is our job as a board to give our administrative team the power to put those IEPs in place, to put the right individuals in place, to hire the staffing that needs to be in place, whether it's an actual teacher or whether it's a paraeducator, so that the assistance is there, so these students are getting what they need on a day-to-day basis. It's not our job as board members to genuinely have a philosophy on special education. It's our job as board members to employ the correct people, or hire the administrative team. Let me rephrase that. Hire the administrative team that will employ the correct people that follow the philosophy in the district as a whole, that follows our strategic plan, as well as Karl had mentioned earlier, our mission statement.
Thank you, Penny. Okay, Donna, how about you?
My philosophy on special education is that I do believe that every student is able to learn. I feel that it is imperative that special education students are mainstreamed in the classrooms, in the regular education classrooms, as much as possible to create inclusive classrooms, to provide not only those special education students with the opportunities that their peers have, but also for those peers, for those regular education students to learn about how to get along with others, how to help others. And I think that is done very well in our school district, as I have been employed in the special education program within the district. Students and families, the IEP teams, they need support to achieve the goals of the students and the families, to get the education that their student deserves. An IEP plan is put in place by that special education team, and it lays out the tools that are going to be helping that student be successful for their unique needs. Those specialized services and programs, those providers also need our support, and so they can do their job in helping the special ed students achieve their goals.
Thank you, Donna. And Rick Scharlau?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Did I already have you speak on this? I did.
You
didn't
did,
I?
ma'am.
Yes, indeed. That's because we are now to the very last item, which is your 2-minute final summation. And you, in fact, would be the first person to start because we're going from the bottom up on the list this time.
Got it. All right. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity tonight. I want to thank my fellow candidates for stepping up, wanting to help lead this community school board, for taking the time to be on this tonight. In summation, I'd like to say that as a candidate, I want to do the best I can for the district. I want to do the best I can for the district's students, staff, faculty, community. I want to do what's right as best to my ability to what the district sees in its strategic plan, its mission statements, and moving forward. I want to try to create an opportunity on the school board to where voices are heard. Decisions are made, and we make them and move on and work within the vote. That's about all I've got. Thanks.
Thank you, Rick. And thank you so much for being here tonight. Next is Donna Thibodeau.
Thanks, everybody, for being here tonight and hearing all of this. I really value what the Menomonie School District provides to our community and would appreciate the opportunity to give back. As a school board member, I'll be reliable, responsible, and accountable. I'll listen and serve in partnership with district employees, parents, students, and community members to advance the best interest of the district as it directs the education of our youth. I support the emphasis on a high-quality education that prepares our graduates for their future. I believe my skills and experience will benefit this board. As a parent, taxpayer, community volunteer, and former educator, I understand the needs of the district and will serve to help meet them. My goal is like yours in that I want a solid public education for every student. Please vote for me on February 16.
Thank you, Donna. And thank you for being here tonight. And Penny Burstad.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And again, I apologize for my technology hiccup earlier today. I hope that you were able to understand with understand what I was saying when I jumped in. If not, I've been on the board for 5 years now, and I would love to serve another 3. I am always available. My direct contact information is on the district website, as well as my personal Facebook page and my school board page. I would love to take any questions, additional questions that anyone has above and beyond what was brought in front of us today. 2 hours, 8 people. It's a lot of questions and a lot of information to get through. So I encourage you not to just reach out to me, but reach out to the other 7 candidates, as well as to vote in the primary on February 16th. And I would really appreciate your vote. So thank you so much for tuning in.
And thank you, Penny Burstad, for being one of the candidates. Next would be Jim Swanson.
I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this online event. Their dedication in overcoming the hurdles that COVID has put before us is really commendable. I'd also like to thank the man behind the monitor, Steve Hansen, for putting all this technology together and making it work. I know I couldn't do it. I'm asking all of you out there for your vote on February 16th. The world is changing because of technology, COVID, and many other factors. I will keep working hard as a board member to promote quality education for all of the students in the Menomonie School District that will allow them to be highly successful in our changing world. I will keep working to make sure that our teachers are treated with dignity and respect that they deserve. I will keep working to promote the safety of our students, staff, and community until the COVID pandemic is over and beyond. and beyond. I will keep working to promote environmental education. I will also keep working for the taxpayers to ensure that you are getting the most bang for your hard-earned tax dollars. Thank you for watching the forum.
Thank you, Jim. Now I don't have to do all that thanking, do I, myself? Okay. Next will be Jeremy Enger.
Again, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this on to making it information available to voters. Ellen, yourself, Steve, Jan, for all the work putting this together. I know on the other side how much I've struggled to learn about board members during elections from my time here in Menomonie. As I've talked throughout this is my first time running for an elected office. So all this experience has been new for me. I don't have an education background. Like I said, I'm a maintenance person at a factory. My wife works nights. I'm doing this because I want to get involved. I want to improve things. I want to make things better for my son. I have a vested interest. He's going to be going to school here for quite some time, we hope. Hopefully on to college as well. And I want to take this opportunity to improve things, improve communication. I think that's one area that the board does struggle a little bit, that they could do a better job of seeking input before policy changes, sending notes home to parents. I mean, even trying to pull up minutes or watching meetings online, it's tough to hear right now. I realize with COVID, it's hard to go to meetings. So again, I'm hoping that I can get your vote. I'm going to do my best to be a voice of the people and remember that I am representing the families and the taxpayers of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy Enger, and thank you for appearing tonight. And next would be Karl Palmer.
Well, thank you, Ellen, the league, Steve, everybody that put this together. I echo what the other attendees said. I would ask voters to consider trusting me to make some decisions on their behalf with the information that comes up at the time it comes up. A lot of questions from tonight still rely on information that would need to be presented to make a firm decision. I said earlier, you can find out more information about what I think about leadership, how teams work together, and some other things on my website, www.karlpalmer.com. And one of the topics I just posted about on my blog had to do with anticipating, and anticipating not just what we think will happen, but the possibilities that we think will happen. And we've all talked tonight about when COVID's done. And as an RN, as someone who every day since March has been reading every piece that comes across about where we're at with this illness, there's 3 possibilities for this fall school year. One is that there is less COVID. The vaccines help. There's less COVID. One thing that could happen is that it's the same amount of activity as the virus mutates. And third, worst case scenario would be there would be more COVID, even though the vaccines are here. As we continue to have spread, the virus can mutate to the point where the vaccines won't be effective. So I will help, if elected, the board look at plans with clear decision points with what we know at the time, because what we know today is different than what we knew in March when COVID came out, and it's different than what we will know, say, in August. And we will make sure that we go back to school as much as possible in person, stay safe. My kids have been in person, and we have to use the scientific facts to make sure the kids are in school and safe.
Thank you, Karl Palmer, and I'm glad that you also are running for school board. I'm glad for all this dedication because it means people really care. Time for Angie Skillings.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Susan Hall, and all of you at Women's League of Voters. I'm thanks to all the candidates that are running. Some of you I know, some of you know it better than others. Whoever does get voted in will be great. It's nice to see this many people put their name in for school board membership. Very excited about the opportunity to help drive the strategic plan forward. I know that the school board invested a lot of time, effort, and funds into putting this together, and after reviewing, it's very well done. There are a lot of positive outcomes. They have significant measurable measurements to be able to see if they're achieving what they set out to do. I think it will be a super time going forward for our board. I would appreciate your vote. I have also a Facebook page, Angela Skillings for School Board. You can reach me there, send me messages. You're welcome to call me. I'd love to hear questions, concerns, suggestions going forward, and get out and vote on the 16th. It's very important to our community more now than ever to get out there and vote. And hopefully some of us will make it through. And if I do, I promise you that I will be a responsible, respectful school board member. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie Skillings, and thank you for being here tonight. And last but not least, Mark Hillman.
I'm always last.
No, you were first to start.
I know. I'm kidding. Thanks, Ellen, and thanks to the Women's League of Voters for putting on this forum, and all the candidates. I think we've got a solid group, and whoever gets elected is going to bring some value to the board for sure. I do have a vested interest, and that's why I put my name in the hat. Not only with a son in the district, but also being a volunteer football coach for the last 21 years. It's allowed me to not only be a leader and a mentor within the district, but also help me develop relationships within, the school in general. So teachers, administration, school board members. And I think that gives me a unique perspective. Not to say that it's better. I'm not saying that, but it just gives me a unique perspective within our district. If elected, I'll bring an open mind, honesty, the willingness to learn, obviously, because I think we found out tonight that there is a lot to learn. Leadership skills, which includes listening, business background, problem solving skills, and logic. And I guess I want to reiterate that I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for the students, the teachers, everybody involved in our district, and most of all, I guess it's our community. So I want your voice to be heard, and I would greatly appreciate your vote. I think that this is a huge challenge, but I've always been up for a challenge, and I actually am pretty excited about it. So thanks to everybody, and get out there and vote.
Thank you, Mark Hillman. I couldn't have said it better myself. Get out there and vote. Good idea. The dates again are February 16th and then again on April 6th. So double duty for all you voters. If you're looking for information, look at vote411.org, because there will be some of the school board members have answered some questions, and their answers will be posted on that site as well. And this forum will be on our League of Women Voters website, which is lwv-gcv.org. So you can, if you didn't get to see it all, you should be able to get to see it there. I understand there was a glitch with the Facebook connections that eventually got worked out, I believe. So congratulations to all of you candidates for appearing and for participating in this information sharing evening tonight. And thank you all for attending.